And of course, we have a special guest, the President and Commander-in-Chief of the EFF. President, welcome and Happy New Year.
Thank you very much for having me, and Happy New Year to you and Mzilikazi and to all the progressive forces and ground forces of the EFF.
Enjoyed the holidays?
Yeah, it was a well-relaxed holiday. I was in Sesheo. Later on, I was in Silicon. Then I went out of the country and came back yesterday.
So we can say you are rested and ready for the year?
Yeah. So I took a deliberate decision to rest with the family. Yeah.
Look, 2025 was hectic. I'm sure you would have seen Mzilikazi. For us, it was a busy one. That started off on a high note.
Yep.
So we wanted to hear from you, President. Maybe what are your reflections on 2025? What were your expectations for that year? Did you set any goals for yourself, personally, for the organization? And what do you think you've been able to achieve?
Well, I think politically we were able to achieve almost everything that we set ourselves for. We said it's a year of picket lines. We've seen the ground forces on the ground taking up issues of our people, raising concerns of our people. And the NPA took a decision to dissolve regions and establish sub-regions. And we've, out of 200 and something, launched successfully 180 something sub-regions of the EFF, which makes us ready for the next local government elections. Took the picket lines into the legislature, raised all types of issues. The first issue we raised, which nobody expected us to succeed, was an increase of VAT, where people wanted to shortcut the laws of South Africa because they thought it was still those days when they had the majority and abused their majority to undermine the laws of South Africa. So we managed to stop that. And when we did that, because you're dealing with political chameleons and political thuggerism, they came with fuel levy, which we equally challenged because we could see that this is bringing back VAT through a backdoor. We managed to stop the deployment of ANC corrupt young kids who wanted to hijack the NYDA even when they did not have the necessary qualifications. We got a minister fired who wanted to bring his friends and comrades through a back door to come and manage CETA. Through Parliament, we're able to expose all shenanigans, and she even lied under oath, and I hope that people don't retreat from that case of her lying under oath, saying Advocate Term Taung was chairing a panel which recommended those names she was putting forward until the advocate came out to say, I don't know what you're talking about. And it was the EFF that exposed all of that. The EFF got Parliament to establish the ad hoc committee, which was rejected by the ANC and the DA. With our very few numbers, we managed to put in a superior logic, which was persuasive to even those who are extremely opposed to us. And today we have seen the ad hoc committee being established and many facts being exposed, including hearing things that we never expected to hear through the initiatives of the EFF. The initiatives of cancellation of student debt. Those who don't owe those fees might not understand the implication of that. The result are withheld. As a result, kids are unable to apply for jobs and feed their families even when they've completed a very difficult journey of educating themselves. And ICASA has just announced now that they are going to really deal with this issue of data expiring and airtime. That was an initiative of the EFF in Parliament where we said, why should data expire? If I buy it, it belongs to me. How I use it is supposed to be up to me. Nobody must tell me you have to use this, otherwise it is going to expire. And eventually, ICASA is agreeing with the EFF. So there are so many things that we did in Parliament which we have won. And because they were advocated by us, people are in denial to acknowledge that this was the initiatives of the EFF. So in a way, we became the official opposition in Parliament, because if you remember, after 2024 elections, we said we're going to become a constructive opposition in Parliament that is going to raise issues robustly and expose the shortcomings of the ANC.
Okay, for me, on a personal level, you started 2025 on a high note. You know, your firstborn son, Ratanang, getting his matric with very outstanding results. But then again, for me, where I'm coming from, it became a very rough year for you. First of all, you had to deal with the 2024 leftovers of Floyd Shibambu, Mbuyiseni Ndlozi. You also had a trial in East London.
Yes.
You have to spend most of the time there. On the other hand, you are running a very big organization like the EFF. Personally, how did you manage to this on a personal level, you know? Yeah.
Well, I think Ratanang becoming successful in matric, it was not just an achievement, it was an emotional thing, because looking at where we come from and to where we are, and with his name having been called as a young man at the time on a negative note, all of that would have amounted to some kind of post-traumatic stress, and it will justify his non-performance. But I've never been called to school because Ratanang has misbehaved, or he has not done schoolwork, or he has fought with other kids, or anything of that sort. He has gone to Kuro at primary, and then he has gone to the other one, the higher primary here at in Sandton, and then he went to St. David's. Even with that, I've never anywhere been called that your child is misbehaving, because he knows that he has to humble himself at all costs and treat everybody equally, and that he doesn't throw his weight around thinking he's something he's not. If anything, and he wants to appease us, he must concentrate on his education and pass. And he did exactly that. And even this year, the result came of it. He completed, passed all his modules. First year is going to the second year. I've listened to everybody saying, giving me advice that, you know, on a first year is a difficult year, things are going to be a bit difficult. It was difficult for them and their children, not me. I've never had to deal with that. Well, Floyd's story and Ndlozi's story was an old story for me. I'm one person who, when things happen, will make reflections about them. But once that is done, it was not anything. If anything, for me, what I was worried about was the people saying the 2024 was the end of the EFF, and therefore the EFF will not grow beyond what it was. And I intentionally took a decision to make sure that we build a strong organization which will prove the doomsayers wrong, that this organization will die. But look, it has been a very good year for me personally and politically. There are this and that. The outcome of East London didn't bother me. Sometimes I even forget about it, only to remember it when someone asks me about it, because it has never been an issue for me. Reason being that the law was not used to arrive at the decision of the court. It was an emotional decision, but also a political punishment, not for what I was tried for, maybe for the views I've expressed somewhere, somehow. And she has always had problems with those. And she said, yes, an opportunity to fight those battles that I've always wanted to fight with him about. But when you go on appeal, there are no emotions there. Her judgment has to speak the law. And in the absence of the law, it will not stand the test of time. So you will know, Mzilikazi, that when you are charged with a firearm and you are found guilty of having used this firearm to commit crime, that firearm is seized to the state once you are found guilty. The firearm in question has been released. The firearm that I'm told I fired has been released to the owner. So if it has committed crime, why is it released to the owner? Because the state must take it. And what was funny about it again is that a day before she passed judgment, the prosecutor called the lawyer of accused number 2 that tomorrow you must come and fetch your firearm before the judgment was made. How did he know that the judgment is going to favor accused number 2? So I'm going to be sentenced for firing a firearm which is not in the custody of the state. Because when you sentence me, the state should be in a position of the weapon that was used to commit crime. That has been released to the owner. So there are 2 visions in a criminal case. There was that firearm which they brought and said, this is the firearm I fired. They are now removing it and gave it to the owner, so it's gone. The only firearm that is left before the court is the one I gave them, which was a toy gun. And I'm going to be sentenced on that toy gun.
So also now it brings me to, although I wanted to discuss this further, it brings me to, you have always said that this case was not a criminal case. Now we see your co-accused, your bodyguard, Adrian Snyman, being left off the hook of all the charges. But what do you make of that?
It confirms exactly what I've been saying. It is not a criminal trial. It's a position to prove a point you have always wanted to prove. That one day, if he falls into my hands, I'll teach him a lesson. That's what I'm saying. Adrian, according to the charges, he handed over the firearm to me. Now you come and say, Adrian did not hand over the firearm to him. Who did that? Which firearm did he shoot? Because once you remove Adrian and you remove the firearm, then we have to now look at the firearm he fired. He says, the version that remains is his. He says he fired a toy gun and he gave it to you. Purely a racist emotional judgment inspired by AfriForum. And that's why AfriForum, immediately after that judgment, went around every Afrikaner asking for money, that please give us money because it will help us to nail Malema. So it's a political issue altogether. And hence I'm saying, let's go to the High Court. I mean, she struggled on her own to pass judgment. It took 3 days. On the second day, she was almost like fainting. It was our lawyers out of Ubuntu who said, can we please take break? Because she was extremely struggling. And that's what happens when you don't use the law and you use emotions and want to use emotions to justify the law. You're going to struggle. There's no way. All of that is a culmination of hatred. And it doesn't matter how I feel about you. I must always answer the question, what does the law say?
So you're saying...
But one moment, you had mentioned as well, President, that she had not written at the judgment and given it to the legal counsels yet, that the legal counsels are still following it on YouTube. Is that still the case?
Yes, there's no written judgment.
They're supposed to have been given within 7 days?
Yes. We look at YouTube. So remember, we now hired a social worker who interviewed me and interviewed everybody around me and looked at my circumstances, went home to check the wife and the kids and everybody. And now she must listen what the judgment says, must read what the judgment says, so that she's able to provide clarity in her input. For her to do that, she has to listen on YouTube.
Not the judgment.
The judgment has not been written, the judgment has not been delivered. So because if you write it down, you're going to have to now reason the law. And then in the absence of the law, it's going to become difficult for you to give that kind of a judgment. So she's in a serious predicament, and it is of her own making, and she will find a way out of it. We're not so much worried about it. Our social worker, she's almost at the tail end of the report. She has given us the first draft. Today at 6, we're having a consultation based on that draft, and then from there, we'll be ready for the 23rd.
So you're saying she was trying to teach you a lesson. Did you learn anything from it?
I can't learn a lesson from hatred. I can't learn a lesson from people who are fighting political battles, masquerading as the judges or magistrate, using our laws to fight political battles. I can't learn from such people. Even in the report that the social worker is writing, she says the accused is showing no remorse. I can't show remorse of something I've not committed. And the court agreed with me. Look, she raised her head and said to accused number 2, accused number 2 on count 1, this and this and this, you are acquitted, not found guilty, you can go home. But she has to write, why is accused number 2 not found guilty on this charge? So when you do that, you are punching holes on the state case. And when you punch the holes on the state case, the same holes apply to Malema.
Yes.
And I can't go there, because if I go there, I'm going to have to say the same thing about Malema. So she has to give us reasons why accused number 2 is not found guilty. After you said you refused him 174 and said you have a case to answer. Accused number 2 refused to take a stand. I took the stand. You said I've got a case to answer. I took the stand. I gave my version. There are 2 versions on this matter. And he says, no, I don't have anything. I mean, no one said anything about me. And he was correct that he was not implicated by anyone. But out of respect, he brings a forensic guy who specializes with ballistics to explain all of that. The magistrate says, well, that guy, I don't even know what was doing, because he didn't help this court with anything. He dismisses that guy who was trying to answer the case on behalf of accused number 2, which means accused number 2 did not answer since that guy is dismissed. So what that guy said doesn't stand. Then the gun law expert comes, gives evidence on behalf of accused number 2. She says, well, he's a very good guy, likable guy, but I can take it as far as that. So meaning I'm not going to use that to justify my decision when I make a decision as the court. Meaning accused number 2, witness number 2 is dismissed. So he didn't give a version. The version of the ballistics expert is dismissed. The version of the gun expert is dismissed. There is no new version. But you acquit him after you refused to acquit him on 174 and said he's got a case to answer. He has not answered any question, but you acquit him.
So that also now brings me, what we are saying now is a very serious issue, brings me to General Nhlanhla Mkhona's, the KZN Provincial Commissioner, when he said in a press conference in July 6 that the judiciary is captured. What you are explaining to us now and what General Nhlanhla Mkhona said almost talk to each other. What's your take on that?
Well, I'm very reluctant to say the judiciary is captured, because you see, the good thing with the judiciary is that you've got a recourse. You always have a recourse. I mean, it's bad for the poor who can't afford to take their matters beyond racist judges who want to persuade you or pursue you for political reasons using the law. So my reluctance with the judges is that we can always take them on and show their shortcomings, and their peers are able to say, but you were wrong here, you were wrong here, you were wrong here, and therefore we overturn your judgment. That the fact that judiciary is captured is not something that I'm dismissing of, but as a whole establishment and institution, it becomes practically impossible to capture all of it. You might capture individuals, but as we go further, above these other courts, you can't capture almost everybody there. One day, the truth will prevail. So, it remind me what I was arguing with Skosana the other day in the committee, in the ad hoc committee, when he says the judiciary is captured. I said, you see, to make such a sweeping statement is to delegitimize the judiciary. And once we delegitimize the judiciary, we are destroying the last line of defense. And that will put us in a lawlessness society, because if my wife, God forbid, gets raped tomorrow, I go to the police, and then I eventually go to the judges, and the judges are scared, are intimidated. They're like, if we rule this way, they will say, I'm bored, we must not put them in that awkward position where when they're about to take a decision, they must be scared that if I go this way, they will say I'm bored. So I was saying to them, you say Ledwaba gave O'Sullivan a judgment that said if you want to arrest him, you must give him 48 hours notice. That is not capture. That is a wrong judgment. It can't be capture. Because if we feel very strong about it like that, let's take it to court. And let's get the court to overthrow that thing, that there's no such a thing of giving any individual 48 hours notice. And he himself will accept the ruling of the court above. You say the same judge, Ledwaba, gave Molefe a bail, and then he said, actually he allocated the case to himself, and it's normally done differently and all of that. But from my little bit of knowledge, Ledwaba said on many cases, one of the cases is he said on, which I was not very happy with, is Palapala, when he sealed the Palapala documents in the office, not in the open court. I was not happy with that, but I've got a recourse. I can take that on review and get the courts to say to him, you must release those documents, let the people see, because it is in public interest. So when he gives Molefe a bail, we cannot call that a capture. We call that a wrong judgment, which we don't agree with, and then we take it on review. I said to Mkwanas, you said judiciary is captured. Who is captured in the judiciary? Then he gave me the name of a magistrate who gave crazy conditions to Khumalo, bail conditions, when he was releasing Khumalo on the bail. Administrative. Yeah, he said one of the things, don't go to the office, and then they were like, but no one prayed for that. There were no such prayers, and then you made such a decision. That is a legal argument on its own, that the magistrate, without anyone praying for this, came to impose this kind of a judgment. You take it on review, appeal, they set it aside, and we move on. And if he aids people's money, and then that case gets overturned, he will have to go and answer to those people who took the money, because they will say, we gave you money, look, we're back to square one. And I said to him, Mkwanas, don't you think you went overboard, which he agreed with me when you said judiciary, because a magistracy can never be used to describe the judiciary. We ordinarily use judges to describe the judiciary. He couldn't give me a judge who's captured until this one who got arrested with a fake IPHC church. Sandlana, who gave money to a child of a judge. And as a result, the judge got arrested. And then as a result, Sandlana got arrested. If I'm not wrong, he was denied bail and all of that. So there we're dealing with specific issues of corruption. And there is prima facie evidence to deal with that. And when I said to Skosana, put a name, He says Julius Malema always says judges are corrupt. I'm like, I'm not a judge, put a name. You just said judges are corrupt. So let's not be rhetorical about the judiciary. Let's be specific. We did that with the police. We're not generalizing. We said we need that national commissioner couldn't answer properly. Not Masamula. The one they went to raid. Sibia. We said we need Sibia, we need Ngabinde, we need Masemola, we were specific on names, and we're specific on why we need this one. We need to answer this, we need to answer this, we need to answer this. And so you say judiciary, and then men and women who are in robes, we start looking at them with that suspicion that this one might be bored, or so then you delegitimize the judiciary. But it's not for me to say they are not kept.
I think it's the same. There was claims, President, with the legislature as well. I mean, there were people who were saying that let's prioritize the Majanga Commission over the parliament process. Yes. Parliamentarians may be compromised. Yeah. Whereas when we encountered, for example, so-called compromised politicians, it was called out. Diane Kola Barnard, Fadil Adams, they were told to step aside.
Yes.
But people tried to cast a cloud on an entire process of parliament because of certain individuals. I mean, even your name came up, you missed certain meetings. They say you're missing them because you're associated with so. So maybe you want to speak to
I wanted to ask you that you missed several sittings at ad hoc committee, but you said you had to take fatherly responsibilities. You have to go take care of the kids and all of that. What can you say when people are saying, no, this was deliberate, you missed them because you are close to Sbia, you are close to, you don't want to speak about Matlala, even though, because your wife's surname is Matlala, even though they're not related, all those kind of things. What's your take on that?
You asking me this question, it's very painful to me because today I have to go to Cape Town, and because General Patlani is appearing before the ad hoc committee.
Yes.
And I looked at all options and I said, to avoid all of this, I need to go. But the problem is tomorrow. It's the first day of school tomorrow.
Yes, I know.
And I've never missed a single day of first school of my children because I still owe it to my kids as a father to be there for them, to nurture them and make them become good members of society, because it becomes extremely humiliating to see the things that are attributed to Mandela family. And some people don't understand why the kids are behaving the way they did. Their father, their grandfather spends time in jail and therefore could not, transfer those humility, Ubuntu, and all kinds of good principles to them. So we cannot do the same thing when we're alive. So we need to balance both parliament, family, and the EFF, and the people of South Africa. Because you can't be there for people and then you're not there for your own children.
Yes.
So I'm giving you that example. And if I were to absent myself tomorrow for that responsibility, I'm going to be accused. Why am I doing this? I've seen people being taken to school by their fathers, and I always envied that I wish one day my father can take me to school.
Yes.
And that my father did not do it doesn't mean I must not do it to my children. So and sometimes I'm not there because I have to deal with the EFF issues, because I'm not going to sit in the ad hoc committee. It becomes so successful. When I come back, the EFF is dead. So I have to strike that balance. And all of those things don't reach me because I know it's a lie, and it's a peddled lie by people who know that I don't know these people. I don't know Matlala. It's not related to my wife. But you know that as Africans, once we share surname,
yes,
we are relatives.
Yes.
And we've always accepted it like that. But how they can't. And what is even worse, there are Matlalas in Skukuni in an area called Nebo. That's where Ket Matlala comes from. Those are the Matlalas of Nebu. And then my wife, they are Matlalas, Matlala Tava. They're from this side, Yama Shashan. It's the opposite side of where those people come from. So even when their names are the same, they are not from a same village or arrangement or anything of that sort. But people will not understand those minute details because they want to understand what they want to understand. And what made matters worse is one of my security detail guy actually worked for Matlala. And then they show him behind Matlala's wife. Yes. Then they say, Matlala's wife, it's my wife. And then that guy is looking after my wife. But it's a security guy, and you know, in that space, the rotation, they move from one place to the other. I mean, he was Zuma's bodyguard at some point. He was a former policeman. He was Zuma's bodyguard. And Matlala says in his unit, he's got special forces, he pays them 100,000 and all of that. But very soon, the monies are going to dry out. The guy is in prison, and those people are going to be out for market. We're going to have to capture them. If we need security, they are well qualified. They were not part of the Nkabis as we do our own screening. And they are former law enforcement officers with high skills. Why not? They didn't commit any crime unless you say it was the committed crime. But the fact that they worked for Matlala, they will do anything to feed their families. They went to work honestly. As protectors, and protectors are not Nkabis.
Yes, I think also it raises an issue. I think during the funeral of one of the taxi bosses, Umswaz, the former police minister Bheki Cele said it himself that you guys, you taxi bosses, are recruiting some of my best police officers.
Yes.
And I'm left with nothing because you guys are paying them better than the state.
Yes.
And, which is what you're saying.
Yes. I when I was in the youth league, there's a guy in the special forces of the army who used to work for me. So what that guy was talking about, I know it very well. And the funeral big he's talking about, I was there.
I know.
I attended. I knew that guy as a taxi boss. Actually, beyond that, he formed Santaco. Him and the Kabas in KZN, they formed Santaco. Santaco, it was not easy thing. He had to bring all. So there was these small associations everywhere. Then they had to bring all of them under one umbrella called Santaco. I think they've not been that successful in the Western Cape.
Yeah.
Yeah. But Santaco is not necessarily the taxi people's thing. It's a government entity.
Yes.
Santaco is a government entity. They even have their offices at the Department of Transport. Yeah. So you want to discuss issues of transport, you want to discuss buses. By the way, the buses in KZN, they are controlled by the Kaba brothers. So as clients that deals with buses every day, you're bound to know those guys because you have to go and negotiate good prices and all of that. And the old man just took a liking on me because he was used to a situation where he speaks and everybody is just agreeing and they don't question him. So I used to challenge him, and he liked that thing, that there was this young man who was always trying to challenge me, and that was my relationship with them.
Yeah, second of that, like you mentioned, that sometimes you have to sacrifice your family for government work, AFF work. What's a typical day in Malema household when you are being a father? Because we've got boys, everyone. What's a typical day like,
Well, their mother will be going on with her own duties at home.
Yes.
And in most cases, she's the one who gives the children the primary care.
Yes.
To make sure that they bath, they eat, you know their routine.
Yes.
They know it's a routine, but they never follow it. So someone must make them to follow the routine. And I'll be sitting around the house trying to find out if there are areas where you can help, but also maintenance. Because I'm one person who says, you know, I grew up in a township where a tap can get broken and then it drips water for the whole year. They just put a bucket there and say, this tap is just like that. So I'm like, I don't want those kind of things where you accept wrong things. You know, when a door doesn't close, they say, no, you have to hold it like this for it to close. So I'm the one who like make sure things are properly maintained, that they're still in good condition. And I've got a good relationship with my kids. And then we'll go to the entertainment later to play music. My son, first one, likes DJing. I always say I'm the one who taught him, but he's better than me. So we just a normal family. And I always say to my wife, you know, ordinarily we shouldn't be inviting people who are not familiar to us in this way, because remember, when you are there, you are in shorts, sometimes in vests, sometimes topless, sometimes without shoes, and then sometimes you swim with the kids, and the person looks at you and says, oh, this is a human being, and then start undermining you from that position. So to preserve that, we must make sure that those who are brought into that space are of a similar understanding that these are human beings, and therefore there's nothing untoward with what they are doing. I mean, there was a guy who was shocked, a friend of mine. Every time he comes to my house, he finds me at the lounge with my boys, and then when I come in, they run to me. He says, how do you do this? What do you mean? He says, this boy is running to you, sitting with you, and then chatting to you. But this is how it's supposed to be. He says, no. In our family, when our father walked in, we were running, we went into hiding. And then if he calls your name, you are in trouble, you are shivering already. No, I don't think it's supposed to be like that, because they go to Kumon. After the Kumon, they get given homeworks. Yes. If the mother is not there, they have to read to me. Yes. They have to write, show me, and I have to sign. At school, they give them homework. If the mother is not there, they have to come to me, read to me, I sign. And they get given books to read at home. They must read a book in front of me. And then if I'm happy, I must comment. And then if there is a new word that he discovered as he was reading, he can't read that word, he says, Dad, what is this? Then I read it for him. I have to write that he discovered this new word, and so on and so forth. So why would they have that kind of a relationship with me if they have to be scared of me? Because if they must be scared, all those words will sound like they're new, because as they read, they'll be shivering. They're so scared, and we'll never know whether these guys know how to read or write, because they're forever scared. So we don't want that kind of environment at home.
But how does that make you feel? Because you grew up in an environment where your father was not there. Yeah. To this day, you don't even know who he is. Yeah. Are you trying to compliment that I grew up without a father, let me be the best dad to my kids? Or is it because you think this is how it should be? This is how dads should do. The dad must not run away from their kids. They should be there for their homework, their kids' parties, whatever, and not just all those kind of things.
Well, for both reasons. I think both reasons account for it. I did not have a father, and therefore I know how it feels not to have a father involved in your development. I mean, I started experiencing father figures when I was growing up in the movement and getting exposed to older men who will now say, no, you can't do this, you do this one, you do it this way, and all of that. My mother, with a limited education as a domestic worker, there are certain things of the street she might not have an understanding of how they work. So I was very fortunate that there's so many father figures around me who were able to intervene. There's a guy who's an EFF councillor in Polokwane called Fred Ramapagala. He's the one, if you want to accuse someone of exposing me to expensive taste of shoes, he's the one who bought me shoes for 3,000 rand. I was still in grade 8. So he bought me, he was saying, inspiring me shoes to go to school. But when I looked at this shoe, it was not for school. It was black, but it was for both casual activities and then for school. So many people have played that role, Boma Paulo and them. So as a result, I didn't grow up with my age mates. I grew up with old men. I'm meeting people of my age in the EFF. Even in the youth league, the people I related with were older than me. At school, the people I remember when we were at school, the old people were still allowed to come to school and be students. I mean, a person will go to school, to prison, and then he comes out of prison, comes to school. And you can see, this guy looks so dangerous. So, but all of those dangerous ones, I made them my friends, or no. These ones, I must not be very far from them because I don't want to be beaten by these thugs. But I also knew a little bit of English there and there. So we used to read dictionary, literally dictionary, to look for big words. And yeah, so when someone tries to challenge them, they call me, address them, and then I will be addressing those people. Then they became a protection. Because remember, I'm the only child. I have no brother I can call for when I'm being bullied by anyone. So I just had those fellows. So we didn't really feel the absence of the father in that way. But you will know that, you need that emotional connection with your father. But my strongest belief is that the family unit is what will lead to the unity of communities. And once the communities are united, our society will be united, because it shouldn't be easy to fight your family member, to stab your family member, to shoot your family member, to beat up your wife and kids in a manner that is unacceptable. And then once you learn that in the unit, you take that behavioral pattern into society. And if we all learn that in the family unit, and as we meet as a community, we bring those values, we're going to have a very peaceful communities. And unlike these communities we exist in, where they are in a permanent war with themselves.
Yeah, because I remember growing up, any person, elder person, will stand on the street and say, hey, go to the shop.
Yeah.
You're not going to say, you're not my dad, you're not my uncle. You go to run to the shop, come back.
Yes. Yes. Even when you smoke, you see an elderly person, you must hide or switch off that thing. Yes. And that's how we were brought up, to respect the elderly people, to respect each other and live together as a community. But slowly we are losing that thing, and we have to bring it back.
So would you say, President, that sense of community within either the Youth League or the EFF, and you building your own family unit, has closed that chapter of an absent father for you? You're not, it's not something you
I don't need a father for what? I'm a father now. So I'm just going to be inviting a lot of trouble into my life, because I have to be learning this new person, and it's not going to come alone. It's going to come with a huge community that is now called my family, and no, I can't be invited. I've got a very huge family called EFF that I have to look after. And therefore, I don't think there is a need. It's like a person who says, like me, I don't have parents. I don't have my mother, my father. I don't have my grandfather, my grandmother, both sides. So, and then I've got no siblings. But I can't declare myself an orphan at this age. There is no orphan that is a father. No, you want to run away from your responsibility once you start using such words. You are a father. The orphan thing ended when you were a child. Now you have to be a father to those who need you. There's a person who once sent me a message on WhatsApp and he said, "Hello, Dad." Hey, who's this one now? Who's calling me Dad? I don't understand. Then he says, "No, you are a father of the nation." I go, so I was like, no, hey, what is the problem now? So I was like, no, that's fine, and that's okay, and all of that. But I'm using that just to illustrate the point that I'm a father to so many people, and therefore I wouldn't go out to go look for my father. I won't go to a traditional healer to say, "Give me a direction where my father is." My mother did not tell me, refused to tell me. My grandmother did not tell me, refused to tell me. And in our culture, you can't overstep the word of the dead. So if they didn't want to tell me, they've got their reasons why. So that's the end of the story.
That's why I wanted to say, are you honoring your mother's dying wish? Because your mother told your grandmom before she passed on that it must end there. You must not know anything.
No. I make no effort. I make no effort. But equally, I don't feel anything. I don't feel. I was found guilty in East London court. My ancestors, and then you go there. Someone says, "Hey, the bones say you must go and look for your father. Then East London will be fixed." And no. I don't. That is one of the things I don't want to hear about. So it's things like that, like a person who comes says, "Your wife is bewitching you. You must leave your wife. You're good." I don't want that. I don't want people to speak those kind of languages of your wife is bewitching you. If that is the case, we are spiritual beings. You will get her on your own yourself when she's doing wrong things. And not someone who's going to come wanting to collapse you, coming to tell you things that are not part of your agenda. No. My agenda is very clear.
So, still on that ad hoc committee, and you and the MKP person, MP Mazolman, always at each other's trust. Most people believe that you are harsh on him or you ruffling him because you believe he's the one who would twist his wife to dump EFF to go and join MKP.
Mazolman doesn't have a very good reputation in the community where he comes from. Actually, his peers who call him Mazolman have always said to me, "We don't see why you should even be arguing with that fool because he's not worth it." Like, we don't know how he found his way to where he is because he can just point at a house or a car or a farm and says, "This is my farm." That, those kind of people, unprovoked, they just lie without being provoked. So I'm not being harsh on him. He has no organizational culture. He has got no meeting culture. He knows nothing about discipline. I don't think he even did the debate at school. No, I don't think, because you must listen to him as he speaks. He's not the kind that inspires you to want to listen more. I'm just, disagreeing with him on how he wants to deal with certain things. He has no meeting etiquettes. And even when you agree with him, I mean, the point that he's fighting me about now, I agree with him. I say to him, put a name of a judge who's corrupt and tell us why you say so. Once you win us over, I'm going to support you. I'm one person who's not scared. He says, "No, you're scared now." That's why I said to him, "You must go and ask your father in Gandla if I'm scared." I made him to go look after cattle now. I said to him, on his face, he's going to look after cattle and he will be watching us on TV when he's at the village. It's happening exactly as I predicted him. So why would I be scared of a judge? But give me facts. Because once you leave the meeting that says the judges are corrupt. It includes me. I'm a member of the JSC, and I know corrupt judges, and I've not raised this matter with the Chief Justice or the Deputy Chief Justice. I'm not being honorable to the committee I serve in, where judges can be disciplined for any misconduct. So I'm not being harsh. I just realize if we leave him to do the things he's doing, it's going to be like we're all like him. We can't allow that. We can't allow the committee to take a wrong direction. When it comes to his wife, I've got no issue with his wife. I think even if she stayed, she was not of any value to the EFF. Whether she was here or she left, she's not of any value. She was never of any value to the EFF. And that's why many people don't make that reference a lot to her leaving the EFF, because in a way it was a good riddance. She didn't bring anything to us.
But you stood by her when she was kicked out as a public protector. The EFF opened doors for her, said, come here, we'll take good care of you, you're a sister, we can fight these battles with you. And she came, and then shortly afterward, there was a new party formed, and then she jumped ship.
Well, she came with Dali and Floyd. Okay. They called me a dictator and all of that, but I didn't know her. I never recruited her. I never had a meeting with her. She came with Dali and Floyd. They said there's this person. Floyd was even trying to justify it, which I agreed with. We ought to now start introducing the people with experience in administration of government and all of that. And that's what attracted me to the idea of having her and having Jimmy Mani. Yeah. I know his name is Jimmy. Those things he's telling us. It's trying to be relevant. So Jimmy Mani, I also didn't bring Jimmy. They came with Jimmy and said the same argument, and I agreed with it, and we welcomed her. And she was not appreciative of the effort we have made, and then she decided the way she decided. But even where she is now, she has no peace. There's no peace. She's been troubled. Her province is one of the most troubled, characterized by instability.
So you spoke earlier about how the EFF's work last year sort of made us the official opposition. And your critique of Mazolman, do you make it a broader critique of the MKP as a whole? Because what's happening now, if you check, Mziligas, there's that chaos happening in KZN.
Yes, that's why I wanted to ask him.
There's criticism that why is the EFF supporting what they are able to criticize as poor in quality in KZN. What do you make of that?
Well, it's very simple. The people of KZN decided they want to be led by fools. So they must have their fools. It's not, I don't decide. We all are of the principle that says the person with the majority must be the one that leads, mayor, premier, and things like that. So they wanted them like that. We get the government we deserve, and that's what the people of KZN deserve. That's what they voted for. To do any other thing against what happened there, it's us being anti-majority. That people have given you direction of which they want to take, and then you decide, no, you're going to give them what you think is right for them. There's no capacity in MK, even in Judge Klope. He has got no politics, none whatsoever. And that's why when he tried to join EFF, I said no. When I was at Judge Klope's farm, we left, me and him, it was just the two of us. He said, no, I thought you brought the form. I said, no, I don't need you to join politics because one, the decision to remove you, I don't agree with it. It's a wrong decision, premised on principles that are not consistent. So it's not for me to take a decision. They took the decision, but I don't agree with it. So I want to plead with you to stay.
And fight your case.
Fight the case, and then we are going to form an AfriForum type of an organization, but for black people. Its responsibility will be to mark the AfriForum. But because you don't have income, we're going to put you on the EFF payroll until we're fully established this thing. Because, look, your legitimacy is so high, not only here in the country, continentally and the diaspora. A lot of people will be ready to sponsor us, to have this kind of an organization, to fight this kind of cases of Helen Suzman, freedom under law, and AfriForum and all of that. So I wanted him to be a Gerinel of some sort, you know. But I think he had pressures of resources and decided to join politics and decided to join a wrong party, which values no education at all, and values no educated people. I don't want to say much about Tony again because he's my friend, so I don't want to cause any problem, but his appointment makes no threat, none whatsoever, to anything. The threat here is Jacob Zuma, and on the basis of tribalism, nothing else. Regionalism, tribalism, the desperation to have an elder amongst us after the passing of Prince Mangosuthu Buthelezi and Goodwill Zwelithini, and some still see the king as a young man so they want someone to look up to. And then some have decided President Zuma is that kind of a person we need. So there are people who still need Shaka Zulu in their life, like they're still looking for Shaka Zulu. And those, you can't do anything about that except to engage in political education, to educate them that these things are not like that. They're way beyond issues of tribes, because even yourselves, if we're to take this thing and break it down, you're going to realize there is no tribe called Zulus. They were Mtetwas, they were this, they were that, which were conquered, and they had to come together and form this kind of an arrangement. So really, there isn't anything. Some of the people who there's a guy, I'm forgetting his name, he's in the ad hoc committee. He's a lawyer by profession. Nomval was at our rally in KwaZulu-Natal, in the Moses Mabhida, readily available to join the EFF. So those are the kind of people that you're dealing with, who have always envied the EFF leadership and thought they can be the EFF. But there's literally no capacity at all.
So now people will say, but EFF is supporting MKP taking over the KZN government, which is, you explain it, is majority rule. But now, don't you feel that maybe it will be disrupting of what is going? Because you said those guys don't have capacity to do anything. Don't you think, are you not supporting people like this to say, are you not supporting anarchy and chaos?
No, we're going to help them. For the sake of the progress of the people of KZN, we're going to help MK in running KZN. So we cannot allow KZN to degenerate. And the good thing is, unlike MK, there is law in government. You don't just do things there. Things are done in a particular way. And therefore, that is going to help us to run KZN in a manner that is required by the Constitution and the laws of South Africa, because we're not going to govern with Freedom Front Plus and the DA. We are ideologically apart and extremely apart from each other. but their historical role in making us to be what we are, our suffering and pain, is because of those people. And therefore, to still bring them into power and still honor Chris Hani. What do you mean? Because the Freedom Front Plus celebrated the murder of Chris Hani and regarded those who killed Chris Hani as revolutionaries. So what are you saying to Chris? What are you saying to Solomon Mahlangu and all of this? I mean, the people who hanged Solomon, some of them are related to Tenu Leon. Tenu Leon is the owner, co-owner of DA. Nothing happens at the DA without him. He's the one who fired Musimaimani. So those are the people you are saying, if we need a good governance, we must govern with the people who once collapsed the economy of South Africa, which they were running on behalf of 15% of the population. The ANC, with all its weaknesses, it has never collapsed to a point where we failed to pay our debts. So what capacity are we talking about? It's just a self-hatred that Groenewald has saved so much since he went to correctional service. It's a pure lie. That thing was started by the commissioner. Those things of finitures and all of that, it was the commissioner who brought that stability and said, we cannot talk about correctional service when people are just sitting, eating. Let's train them so that they can live here with certain skills. And I was saying to the commissioner the other day, my problem is that you are training people who killed my father or my mother, making them lawyers, you're making them teachers, you're making them carpenters, and all of that. I cannot be a lawyer, I cannot be a carpenter, I cannot be anything, because my father died. He's the one who was paying for all of these things. Yes, so this guy gets rewarded for killing my father. What do you do with me? So there ought to be such programs even for the victims. Yeah. We have no problem with them being trained and coming out with a skill. I know of many who came out with a skill and then they became very perfect. But what about the children of the victims of these people? So the commissioner has been doing very well there. How can you turn around that thing in less than a year? You know how slow government is. They get used to do things in a particular way. To change them, it becomes very difficult. He inherited a functional department which is run by a black brother. But they will never tell you that. They now took all of those achievements of a black brother and gave them to...
Tobacco was there.
Yeah, Tobacco has been there long before.
Yes.
They gave him... they now take his achievements and give to the politician. And the typical him, the professional civil servant, is not in competition with politicians. It's like if the minister shines, the department shines. So I don't have to be competing and creating an impression that, no, you're lying. But those who know the truth like us, who must be able to tell that it's a lie. It's not true. It's a lie. So even the KZN number 1 results we're talking about now is not an achievement of these people. It was systems that were established well long before this provincial government of unity came about.
So talking about the KZN now, let's look at the government of national unity, where you mentioned you lambasted the DA being the EFFA, Freedom Plus, and what's your take? Do you think it was a blessing for the EFF not to be part of the NGU?
It was. You know, revolutionaries are not rewarded with money and all kinds of material benefits, are rewarded by standing with their principles. That even when there was an opportunity for political expediency, you refused and stood your grounds and said, I'm not going to be part of this. I mean, you should be ashamed to have a Gayton Mackenzie as a minister with no, a little bit of morality to occupy the kind of office he has occupied. And you must go and sit in that kind of government. They've done us so bad that they're prepared to sleep with criminals, convicted criminals in government, and say, these are ministers. Ministers are a reflection of the kind of society we are. And that's Getting is the one who defines us. He defines us as to who we are. So you must never be desperate for power to a point where you are prepared to kiss frogs because you want power. So we refuse. And I think that's what led to some of these disagreements and people leaving the EFF to MK because they thought it was a shortcut to power. I don't believe in shortcuts. So I don't believe in quickie. I believe in longevity. You have to be long. This thing of quickie, and I want you to have a stay in power. Yeah. So we decided, well, let's play an opposition role. And in municipalities where we are allowed to participate, let's put in our young ones to gather the necessary experience, so that when that time comes, at least some amongst us have got an experience of how certain things are done.
So, in terms of, perhaps this will be a discussion within the EFF.
Yeah.
Going into local government elections and post, would the EFF maintain the same posture that we can't work with the D and the Freedom Front Plus? But also additionally, President, we've seen there's a new culture emerge of mayoral candidates being the faces of campaigns. Is the EFF thinking along the same lines, but also considering now our experience of the GNU and where we were not part of that? Would it be the same posture?
Well, it's a principal position to a point that whoever is going to work with us will have to give us mayorship. And if you don't give us mayorship, we're going to stay out of it. So you guys can battle it out. Don't involve us. We can't vote for DA or Freedom Front Plus. It's the same principle we took in 2016, which made the ANC to be where it is now. We made ANC lose metros. We could have voted with them and given them. We said, no. When they refused to include us, we said, okay, that's fine. You go ahead. And that they still don't acknowledge that point, that this could have been corrected and we accepted EFF's offers at the time of 2016. So it is unacceptable that we should have people like Dr. in Ekurhuleni as a mayor and not have Dunga as a mayor in Ekurhuleni. And when you compare the quality of leadership between Dr. and Dunga is way better than this chap. Dunga came in briefly, stabilizes the finances of that institution, made sure it gets a clean audit, made sure it recovers some lost monies and all of that. When they came in, they can't pay service providers. Dunga called a meeting in a hall of all unpaid service providers, set up tables where you have to move from this table to this table, getting explanation as to why you are not paid, what are the issues, and they were paid. Service providers were being paid. So, and then they will say the EFF is corrupt. But the EFF has got no single MMC or a councillor that was caught corrupt since it accepted these responsibilities. They penned EFF like that because it must never be given a responsibility, because if you give them responsibility, you will never get it back. The people are going to say, these ones are the ones that we want as a communities to come and lead us. So the principle remains the same. We're going to have mayoral candidates in all metros and the big cities. So Polokwane has got Limpopo has got no metro, so which means there will be a mayoral candidate in Polokwane. And the same applies to Umtata. It might not be a big city, but it's one of the biggest municipalities. You can't undermine it. and so on and so forth. So Kimberley and that's why we're going to have a mayoral candidate. I mean, if they want to play that game, let's play it. One of the things we need to demand as society is we need to get our mayors to have mayoral debate. All candidates must be put there, they must debate, and then they must be asked questions, not in a noisy environment of supporters and anything. They must stand there, and journalists must line up, intellectuals must be lined up, and they must be asked about how to run a successful municipality and let the people get to hear for themselves as to which party has got the best candidate forward.
Local governments are coming this year.
Yeah.
What's your plan and what are you promising your followers?
Well, the first thing is we must increase the votes of the EFF. There was a slight decline because we were caught napping in KZN. Now we are aware there is a big elephant in the room in KZN. We need to play a role there because you cannot, if you want to be a national player, avoid KZN. It's one of the biggest voting population. It's KZN, it's Western Cape, it's Gauteng. So you need to make sure you've got a strong presence in those provinces. But you ought to have targeted municipalities. And as you do so, you can announce that. Okay. Because if you announce that, then you are going to meet the counter-offensive, especially from the state, which is going to destabilize your campaign. So you ought to have municipalities where you say, yeah, I'm prepared to spend more money. So if I'm spending 50 Rand in each municipality, here I'll spend 100 Rand because there is potential. And we ought to zoom into candidates, not necessarily to impose, but the EFF branches have a duty to elect reputable individuals in communities who are respected, who are well known for their community work, community service. You can't appoint or elect a drunkard who, when he comes from Umgidi, he just stops in the middle of the road and pee. And then tomorrow he must address us about environment. Or pick up a woman's beater. It's well known in this community that he beats up his wife, he kicks him down, close the door, push her out and all of that. This is the kind of a man we must elect. We know that this one is practicing ukutwala. He takes kids when they're still young, and then at 16, 18, he sleeps with them. He says his culture when he's actually raping them. And you say that is our candidate. It can't be. You ought to elect credible, respectable individuals who have a history of community involvement. And those are the kind of candidates we are going to be fighting for. The leadership of the EFF has a duty in the next 3 months to babysit a lot at home, kiss their wives and husbands many times a day, because after that, they're going to have to be on the ground. Some are going to have to relocate and stay in those targeted areas I'm telling you about, because we're going to have to deal with a senior person there. We don't want to deal with junior people. We want to deal with senior people in targeted municipalities who are going to give us accurate report and not exaggerated reports. And when resources are deployed there, we're actually satisfied that these resources will be used optimally to ensure that the numbers of the EFF increasing significantly if we don't win that particular municipality.
Speaking of numbers, President, I mean, we know January 8th is usually the statement event of the ANC. Since you've been in the youth league, you would know that it's where they set the tone politically. It's how they shape the mood. It's how, it was a story you always used to tell that what got you into trouble when you were expelled is that you took the Sunday papers with your cabbages instead of the January 8th. The Sunday papers this week, we're talking about a half-empty stadium. What are your thoughts? What is it saying to us about the state of the ANC today?
Well, that is science. I mean, if the application of science tells you that the ANC is dead, I predicted this long before about Northwest. And I remember I even asked Papiki to stand up in one of the events. And I told him, I said, I don't know what's defeating you in Northwest, because there's no ANC in Northwest. And it has been like that for a very long time. I think 10 years now, there hasn't been ANC in Northwest. They used to have a clown there who used to think he can see, he still thinks he can sing and dance, called Supra Maumapilu, but the guy had no capacity, none whatsoever. And then No came. You know what's painful in Northwest is that No has opened a tavern. I don't know if it's in Klerksdorp or something. As a result, the ANC provincial office is closed. They are operating from there, from that tavern. MECs go to the tavern, Premier go to the tavern, including national leaders who are deployed in Northwest. They meet at Nono's tavern. That's what happens. When you take the organization to a tavern, the outcome are what we have experienced there. Mbalula is talking absolute rubbish when he says he apologizes for congestion, for starting late because there was a congestion. There's no such a thing as congestion. When we plan rallies, there's something called JOC, Joint Operation Center. It has got medics, it has got police, it has got marshals, including the head of the security of the event. For every event, there is an entrance and exit. So he says there was congestion and all of that, which means there was no planning. Why was there no planning? Because Mbalula is a leader, he's not a secretary general. He wants to arrive the same way Ramaphosa arrives. Instead of going to plan that event himself, he's got capacity to do that, I know for a fact. But he's no longer involved because he now sees himself as an equal of Ramaphosa. And as a result, the thing is collapsing. You ought to know, I mean, we were at FNB, 94,000 people. There was no traffic jam anywhere, anyhow. Every senior leader that came into that stadium, they were seeing people for the first time. Senior leader, I'm talking leaders of society, traditional leaders, traditional healers, the priests, the religious leaders. They were getting into the basement. As they get into the grandstand, they were like, how are there people here? Because it was run in such a way that it doesn't cause any trouble. You obviously knew you were going to a village. So you should have made extraordinary plans. But I knew there was a problem when informal program was running. There's a chap there who kept on announcing, can you go and fetch those people at the overflow? They are watching from overflow. Then I knew that once you start calling on people to move from this side, there is a problem. And I knew that's how it's going to end. It's done. There's no way they are going to increase the votes. No way. We should accept that Northwest told us what's going to happen in 2026. And I was saying to Papiki, if you miss this now, it is of your own making, not because anyone did anything. Even when you had differences and you saw that thing, you put everything aside and go for it.
You're saying the SG of the ANC, Fikile Mbalula, is competing with the president of the ANC, Cyril Ramaphosa.
Yeah.
So what does it make of the organization? Because those are the two engines of the organization, the SG and the president.
Yes. No, they're not two engines. So this is when we organize the event. The organizer of the event is the Secretary General. He's the one who's the organizer. He organizes it.
Yes.
Then he goes to the Treasurer General and says, I've organized buses. I need money.
Yes.
So the Treasurer pays what the organizer has organized.
Yes.
The President speaks about what the organizer has organized. Okay. So this one speaks, this one organizes, this one's pays. So their roles are properly defined.
But
this one wants to speak like this one, wants to arrive like this one, because he holds an ambition and he can't hold back. He's already at an advanced stage, and as a result, organization is going to suffer.
He's your friend. Why can't you advise him?
I tell him all the time. I tell him all the time. But he's at another level. It's at a point where you can't do anything about it. And he knows those teachings. He knows. We come from the same school of thought where we were taught how these things operate. It was bound to be like that. And it is going to be like that for quite some time. To a point that it will start degenerating in Limpopo and the Eastern Cape, because that's what keeps them standing. Yeah. And it's just a matter of time before the rural community itself start realizing that this is not what we deserve, because a younger generation is coming up. The 2025 matriculants who made us proud confirmed that their eyes are opening up. They are now beginning to see things, and they are going to start telling the government, we are not our parents. Those things you did to our parents, they are not going to do them to us. We're not going to accept them. Otherwise, we're going to change you.
Yeah. Perhaps, President, to close on the domestic front before, because we can't close without talking about Trump.
Yeah.
You're speaking about how the Eastern Cape particularly is one of the provinces of support for the ANC, which is still relies on. In the press conference you had last year, you spoke about its importance to the EFF and how we're going to zoom in and potentially invest a lot of money there. What is it that you've seen? But also, secondly, you're speaking about the new generation that is going to possibly see the truth for what it is. And if we can recall, and some people can look it up, the Ipsos did a poll around 2024 where it said the voter base of the EFF is shifting from the traditional working class and to the middle class, educated type of classes. Are you not afraid that maybe we'll shift too far from the working class and become dependent on this emerging class from the universities? And also, what did you see in the Eastern Cape that made you think that let's invest a lot there?
Well, Eastern Cape is very backward. You want to talk about mud schools, you find them in Eastern Cape. You want to talk about pit toilets, you find them in Eastern Cape. You want to talk about the roads. I mean, Andile Lungisa's mother passed away. I was in East London in court, came back, and then to devise a means to get to his home, the plans were just practically impossible because the roads are not proper. No proper houses. If you go to Limpopo and look at rural areas where people are building for themselves, not relying on government, there's no such a development in the Eastern Cape. So they are exploiting that to say you must rely on social grants. That's why they were drunkards there in Eastern Cape. We even composed a song about 350. Ramaphosa loves them. He gave them 350. Such a dehumanizing amount of money was praised in the Eastern Cape, and they realized that they can fool the people of Eastern Cape. But it won't be for that long until our people realize that this is not what we deserve. The situation is very bad. Even children are dying of hunger, starvation in Eastern Cape. And therefore, the Eastern Cape leadership and ourselves can't fold our arms and not intensify in educating society in that part of the country and make sure that they have opened their eyes and appreciate that social grants are not the beginning and the end. And that's why Gwede Mantashe will speak the way he does, because he comes from Eastern Cape and he knows that they can do as they wish and nothing will happen. There will not be any kind of consequences to call the young people of South Africa lazy, that they've never applied for jobs. A man who has never applied for a job himself got integrated through TEBA arrangement and found himself working underground, but want to come and educate us about submission of CVs and looking for jobs. You know, to have a more strong support in Bryanston than in Alexander does not constitute a shift. Because the working class is not about to what extent are you educated. Your class is determined by your relationship to the means of production. So the people in Bryanston, in Midrand, and the people of Alex and Tembisa are the same when it comes to the relationship to the means of production. They are not owners of the means of production. What does that include? Amongst other things, it includes ownership of land. It includes ownership of banks. It includes ownership of mines. It includes monopoly industries and any other strategic sector of the economy. None of them. And the Bryanstons ones understand our language much more better because they are driving beautiful cars, staying in beautiful houses, but deep down they know that they do not own those houses and cars. So our message speaks to them more than the one who stays at home, doesn't own a car, doesn't stay in an apartment. When you say that apartment you stay in, you don't own it. It says, which apartment is he talking about now? Because I don't stay in any apartment. So there is no class suicide that was committed. No, there are two kinds, there are two types of classes. It's the owners, the bourgeoisie class that owns the means of production, and the working class that doesn't own the means of production. Then you've got these ones who are in the middle. They're not a class, they're a strata. They are neither owning or not owning. Some are seeking to own. They're trying to own. You know, they hold that ambition. I always cringe when Mashaba says he's a capitalist, and I'm like, I don't think he knows what being a capitalist means. There are very few capitalists in the whole world. I don't think there are more than 10. If they are, not more than 20. So he just calls a concept without understanding what it means. He's not a capitalist. The same thing as Sir Ramaphosa. You can call him a billionaire and say whatever he wants to say. What does he produce? What does he own? That makes this economy to shift. That if Ramaphosa is disrupted, the economy will collapse. Nothing. Nothing. So we cannot, even here in South Africa, there are so many few of them. It's the Minel, it's the Oppenheimers, it's those Stellenbosch ones, very few of them who owns the means of production. The rest of us are selling our labor to these few who are owning the means of production. So the EFF is still right within its constituency. And it has made a shift from lies which were spread that is lying and misleading the uneducated. We now are proving it scientifically that would not exist only for the illiterate people. Hence, the universities, all of them, literally all of them, are EFF. And that's where the young intelligentsia is found. That's where the questioning mind is found. That's where you ought to make sense. And the kids in institutions of higher learning, all of them, even in FET, have responded by saying the only thing that makes sense is EFF and nothing else.
Trump, every day we woke up during December, if he's not bombing Nigeria, he's bombing Venezuela, he's kidnapping the president. What do you make of it?
He posted, I think, day before yesterday or so, that he's now the acting president of Venezuela, you know?
Yeah, that's what you get when you elect the politically illiterate people to lead society. A lot of people make stupid mistakes and say we need a business person to be a president of South Africa. Politics are more complex than that. And Trump is such a typical example of electing so-called successful business person who has got no basics of politics. Because in politics, you also learn diplomacy. You also learn sovereignty and how to relate with other nations. So he has not just verbalized his political illiteracy. He has practicalized it. How do you become acting president of Venezuela? In all respect, it will never happen. And he knows it. There will be a permanent instability in that country because those people are going to fight for their self-determination. They're not going to allow that. Everywhere they went to Afghanistan, they destabilized that country. They went to Libya, they destabilized that country. Iraq. They went to Iraq, they destabilized that country. Everywhere they say they are intervening, they go and destabilize the country. They are going to start a world war. But I don't think he has politically internalized and discussed it and take a deliberate decision to start a world war. He doesn't even know how a world war get to be started. I think he's unwittingly going to start a world war because he's going to tamper with interest of a lot of nations. And they're not going to sit back. They're going to respond. And the art of war teaches you that you can't open so many battlefronts.
Yes, yes.
You can't be fighting everyone and expect to win. And then become worse. Start fighting even your own inside.
Yes.
You will have instability inside and you will have outside forces also turning against you. You can be this superpower, but those resources are limited. You're going to be fragmented and be fighting in all fronts. And the next thing, the resources get depleted and you get defeated. But that doesn't apply, doesn't think about it.
More especially when you're looking at like it's just 5 months before the World Cup and America is co-hosting the World Cup with Mexico and Canada. Like now, most people will be scared to go to the World Cup. And also he himself has annihilated a lot of countries, a lot of people who are supposed to go there and support their... So it tells you that he politically is not mature.
Yes, but South Africa, Bafana must officially withdraw. SAFA must take a decision to withdraw from having anything to do with the World Cup that is taking place in America. When a country starts disrespecting international law, which declared that apartheid is a crime against humanity, and other people still wanted to trade with South Africa, a lot of countries refused to trade with South Africa because it was violating human rights, it was violating international law. So we must boycott the World Cup in America and boycott anything that has got to do with America, because we cannot sit back and allow a person to destabilize the world and it becomes business as usual. That is an act of cowardice.
But now with his Trump's friend Elon Musk,
he's
been trying using backdoor front windows to bring Starlight into South Africa.
Well, we shouldn't allow that. He's not fighting to bring the Starlink because he wants to he wants to give us access to network and all of that. They're coming to police us. They're coming to create regime change. The white people realize they cannot take it through a ballot, and they are now engaged in illegal, unconstitutional method to destabilize this country so that eventually they can take it over. We've got a lot of strategic minerals that are needed by America and everybody else, including Elon Musk, who is involved in business. And therefore, the government that is saving today, it is not saving in their best interest. They will never cooperate with that government. If anything, they are going to try and collapse that government. We are not opposed to network connectivity. We are the ones who fought for data not to expire, time not to expire. The more we broaden our network, the better, especially for the rural community, which is still voting for the ANC, is not exposed to a lot of information as to how corrupt these people are. But we cannot have a network that is going to be policing us, operated by Mossad to monitor our activities and to instigate insurrection inside our country. We shouldn't allow that, and we must never be blackmailed not to follow our laws. Our laws are not racist or are not discriminatory. Are simply saying, let's pull those ones who were left behind to come and be at the same level with us. The BEE is not going to be a permanent feature. We're just using it as an intervening method to address the historical imbalances. Yes. Once that is achieved, we can have a conversation about, do we really need this law? Because now our people are at a point where they can equally compete with their counterparts without being disadvantaged by the fact that they are not exposed or they do not have the necessary resources to compete, as it were, at that level. So I think it's something that all of us, we must put our political differences aside and say, Musk, as long as it's not compliant to the laws of South Africa, he must never be allowed to enter here, and no special law must be made for Elon Musk.
So we saw one minister trying to smuggle a gazette that allows Starlink to come in here and then all of that. And what does it say about this country? The president never said anything about it so far.
Well, it's a GNU. The president is trying to tread very carefully, but that was wrong. It was not properly processed. And you can see that this minister is driven by other interests other than the interest of South Africa, because as we are still pushing now, we are pushing empowerment of black people. And solely if was part of the agenda to empower black people, he will not have done what he did. It was extremely wrong, and he was actually confirming that he's working for certain interest and not for interest of South Africa.
Thank you very much, President.
Okay, thank you.
Any final message to the fighters? We know that we've launched a campaign, back to school, plans for the year, and final messages to them.
Well, every fighter knows that he has to adopt a school and make sure that the children are admitted at school. And the youth command must be at every gate of every school. Try to help parents to get their children admitted. Try to mobilize resources for those children who don't have school fees, who don't have school shoes, who don't have school uniform. Make sure that you help them, but help them genuinely and in a dignified manner by not exposing their pictures all over, because that is self-serving. You want to make sure that you show people that you can help others. There's no need if you are doing it genuinely. Even if you don't have money to help with shoes and anything like that, you can go and help with cleaning the yards, cleaning the classes, make sure the school is ready, the toilets are ready. When kids come in, they don't have to start by cleaning. They start first day, they start by learning. And we're calling on the government to deliver books in all outstanding schools in South Africa. Let all schools get their books so that there's no day that passes without children passing. We want 90% plus. The class of 2025 made us very proud, and KZN made us very, very proud. We used to be very worried about that province, and it has come through. And I'm happy that the DA's incompetence is now being shown in the Western Cape. They are now number 5. They are gradually going to number 9. They will compete, I don't know, with Eastern Cape or anything of that sort in terms of education. So I'm happy with the progress. I've seen, they said we made a slight decline in mathematics and commercial subjects, but in the physical science, there's been some slight improvement. And when we improve in physical science, it's not, small as it is, it's not a joke. It means we are in the right direction. We wish them well. They must go to higher institutions. They must not stay at home and say they don't have money. Those who passed well, wherever they go, they will find the EFF at every gate. If they can't find it, they must go and look for the offices of the EFF and go and tell them, I've got this qualification, I've passed, and they're refusing me entry at a particular university. All public reps of the EFF have been given a simple mandate to go and help children to get into school. And all of them individually are going to give an account of how many children have they helped, what are the names of those children, where do those children stay, what do they want to study. We need to get that report individually from our public representatives. And lastly, we have taken a decision that this year, every Friday before you do your podcast, I will have to give the state of the nation briefly before the podcast starts. Every Friday, I will have to communicate with the nation through the platform of the EFF on how certain things that are taking place in South Africa are being dealt with by the EFF, and also to elevate certain matters that are currently taking place in the country. We wish everybody well, and let's all go and work and build and strengthen the EFF. We need to win these elections. It's do or die. If we fail this time around, we're gone. We must all go and look after cattle and mukokoroshi, hard-bodied chicken. Thank you.
Loud and clear. Thank you, Mzilikazi, and